Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining today. We want to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shamsundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Gaunitai Shri Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. Continuing with the lessons from the Bhagavad Gita, we had in total, I think, 75 lessons from the 18 chapters, which is a lot. So we're just going through each chapter bit by bit. And looking at the different themes and the lessons to take from these chapters. Now, chapter 8 is about attaining the Supreme. And the summary of the first 4 verses is as follows. Now, doubting is a function of intelligence. And at no point in the Bhagavad Gita does Krishna reprimand Arjuna for asking so many questions. This Bhagavad Gita is question and answers, basically. Arjuna is asking, Krishna is answering. And it's very good when questions are asked. Everybody benefits. And we shouldn't be shy for asking questions. Because actually, if we have doubts, it's a good thing, because it means we are thinking. If we're not thinking, if we accept everything blindly, then there's no question of any doubts. But if we accept things blindly, then that doesn't mean that we're convinced. And if somebody else comes up with another philosophy, one may just, because one is doing everything blindly, not understand the importance of Vedic culture. So it's very important to ask questions. On the contrary, Krishna encourages Arjuna to intelligently contemplate all his answers and subsequently make his own decisions. So we see that in chapter 18. He says to Arjuna, have you heard everything I told you? Have you understood? So this is Krishna. He wants us to understand. He wants us to ask questions. This chapter opens with Arjuna's questions on several spiritual concepts. He asks 8 questions, and Krishna answers 7 of them immediately. Within 2 verses, he's answered 7 of the questions. And then the 8th question, he spends the rest of the chapter answering that question. Fundamental question. How can one attain a spiritual destination at the time of death? Very, very important question. Because we're living in this world, but it's going to be for a short time in this body. When we leave this body, that's called death. Where are we going to go? Do we know? No, not a clue. Where do we want to go? Well, Bhagavad Gita advises us. Spiritual destination, the spiritual world. So then Arjuna asks the question, how does one attain the spiritual world? So the lesson to learn from these first 4 verses is spiritual inquiries are very important. They benefit 3 people. The person who's asking the question, the person who answers the question, and the audience. So 3 people benefit. And the scenario that really comes to my mind is when Parikshit Maharaj, he was cursed to die in 7 days, and he sat on the Ganga and he waited. He had many questions. He waited for the right person to come and answer his questions. And when the right person came, Sukadeva Goswami, he greeted him nicely, and then he inquired for 7 days, 7 nights. Question, answer, question, answer. And in the audience, there was a huge contingent of sadhus, including Narad Muni, Vyasdev, Sutta Goswami, such exalted personalities. And it is said that Parikshit Maharaj perfected his life by listening for 7 days, 7 nights. Sukadeva Goswami perfected his life by speaking for 7 days, 7 nights. And the audience became perfect by hearing the spiritual discourse. So everybody wins in the spiritual discourse. So Then, from verses 5 to 8 of chapter 8, Krishna gives some amazing nectar for those engaged in worldly pursuits. Hearing about, contemplating, and accepting the end, death, is not the most inspiring reflection. For a spiritualist, however, the end is not a depressing thought, since his concept of life and its purpose is much broader. So death isn't the end. By no means is it the end. In fact, it can be a beginning of some extremely exciting times. For one who is born, death is certain. For one who dies, birth is around the corner. Krishna explains how a person's thoughts at the time of death sum up their consciousness and aspirations cultivated throughout life. Thus, one's state of mind at the time of death determines their next situation, the next birth. For one who remembers God at death, they reach the kingdom of God. So this is it. This is Krishna's giving the strongest hint possible. How to attain the spiritual world? To remember him at the time of death. How do you remember the Lord at the time of death? Well, we live our whole life for that one moment. So we try to remember God throughout our lives, so that at the end we can remember him. So, lesson, which is interesting lesson here. We can, every 15 minutes or even less time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we can say out loud, Krishna, or we can say to ourselves, whether one is working, eating, playing, etc. Just now and then, just say Krishna, Krishna. Remember him. In this way, we are training the mind to constantly think of Krishna. It is said that at the time of life, it's the time of death, sorry, one's whole life flashes in front of us. So it's important to remember Krishna throughout our life so that we can remember him at the end. And there have been one of our friends, he was relating to us many, many years ago, devotee friend, long time ago, how he was stuck in a crossing and a train was coming towards him. So he was stuck in a car. And his whole life flashed past him at that moment. He survived, of course. But he was remembering, the whole life flashed past, and then he was thinking, who's going to look after my wife? I haven't made a will. So we try to remember the Lord as much as we can throughout our life. Do as much bhakti as possible. And if for any reason we haven't remembered God throughout our life, now is a fantastic time to start. Now is there's never too late. It's never too late. This is the point. It's never ever too late. So let's have a look at texts 9 to 22. This world is a temporary university specifically created to give life lessons. So this world, it's like in one sense, it's like a hospital. We are diseased, we've forgotten God, and the cure is to remember God. It's also a university, because here we can learn how to live in such a way that at the end we go back to God. That's what Bhagavad Gita is all about. As spiritual beings, life in a complex world of matter is an incompatible situation. Why is it incompatible? Because we are eternal beings, but we're trying to find enjoyment in a world of names. It's just names. So everything is temporary. Everything will be destroyed by the function of time. It's an incompatible situation. When one becomes frustrated by the pursuits of this world, because we can never get happiness in this world, we can realize that happiness lies in another realm. Why is happiness so elusive? Because everything changes. At the time of death, everything changes. So in this life, we may be the happiest. We may have all the money we want, all the relatives, all the friends, all the possessions, but at death, everything gets left behind. So there's no chance of any happiness, sustainable happiness in this world. So happiness lies in a different place. While the material world is rubber stamped as a constantly changing place of misery, the spiritual world is distinguished as being eternal and all blissful. That's where we belong. But we've come to this temporary world. There are many painstaking ways in which different spiritualists conduct their lives in order to attain that supreme destination. And having attained it, one never returns to this material realm again. So there are different paths. We're not saying that bhakti is the only path, but what we are saying is bhakti is the easiest path. But there are many different paths. So let's try to understand the different destinations of the different spiritual practitioners. Those who follow karma kand, follow the Vedas to get benefits. So you worship the devatas and obtain money, whatever, husband, wife, children. These are called karma kand activities. That leads one to heaven. So that destination is not the spiritual world. That's still within this world. Heaven is not good enough. The karma yogi, he will also attain heaven. And in his next life, he will have an opportunity to continue his spiritual journey. Jnana, Jnana yogi, the Jnani, he will attain most likely the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, the formless aspect of God, because he has perhaps not understood that there's a higher spiritual reality than the formless aspect of God. The Astanga yogi, he will attain Brahman and maybe the Paramatma. But the Bhakta yogi, Bhakti yogi, he will go to Golok, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha, wherever his desire is. So we have to understand that these are different practitioners having different destinations. Verses 23 to 28. As different spiritual practices are discussed in this chapter, Krishna concludes by outlining the most effective process to attain the supreme bhakti yoga. Here we go again. Krishna describes this almost in every chapter, except chapter 1. The path of active service to God. Yes, Pravin.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you reverse the page before, the one you talking about those 5? This Karam Kanda, Karam Yogi, Janam Yogi, Astana Yogi, Bhakti Yogi. Are this like this time and you get it after the death that you go to earth and heavens and good family? Is it after the death or
after death?
After the death, then you be Brahman. Then Astana Yogi, you come Brahman and Paramatma. And Bhakti Yogi.
Yeah, you don't become, but you attain it. Yes, that's right.
But you saying after you die, you come, you go into one of these. You have a new birth.
Yes, that's the understanding that we have from the scriptures. That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
But the bhakta, the beauty is the bhakta. Because he's engaged in bhakti, he's already with God. Even in this birth, in this life, if one is fully immersed in bhakti, only doing bhakti, then already that person is in the spiritual world. Already he's in Golok because he's simply thinking about God. So that's the difference between bhakti yoga and all the other yogas. Even in this very life, the devotee of the Lord who's fully engaged is already liberated. He's already with the Lord.
Good, is it? And just now you said something about a man crossing the rail, and the train was coming in front of him, but he's arrived. We was thinking about what happened.
Yes.
The similar thing happened to me.
Really?
And age 65, when I retired, I went to temple.
Oh.
The day after I retired, I went to temple just to pray God. And coming back home, I was crossing the road, and because it was green, man, I started crossing the road. In my mind, that is a green, man, I'm crossing. But I don't know, all of a sudden, where this 8-wheeler, big lorry came from the right.
Wow.
And I was in middle of the road. Ooh. I didn't know where to go, this side or that side.
Right.
But that man braked.
Wow.
And then he stopped. He come out from his lorry, and he said me, "Are you all right?" Wow. And I'm just looking at him.
Wow.
And it just happened the day after I retired from my work. I said, and I was coming from temple, and I just prayed, God, you saved me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Then he made me cross the road, and then he went. But I don't know where he came from. That was just my thinking. And I'm just thinking that he must be not from this country. He must have come from another country. Sometimes this, like Spain, and they're coming, they don't know when to do right turn, I don't know. But it was a big wheeler, and it happened where I'm laying the 4 roads together. Sometimes I'm crossing that road and I always remember it, but I must forget it.
Wow.
So Krishna is...
What were you thinking? What were the thoughts in your mind at that time?
I was just crossing the road, that's all. And I was thinking, I'm happy now, I'm retired. You know, and this thing happened.
Wow.
Anyway, he made me cross the road. I came this side, then he drew back. But that was the 8-wheeler, and came home. I was just sit down. I said, "Oh my God, I would have gone that day." But if you thinking about God, like, because I was coming from temple, I always think that God saved me.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. I said I better share with you.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Okay. So,
Prabhu, you know the Ashtanga Yoga?
Yes.
And Paramatma. So when we do Ashtanga Yoga, that's when we reach Paramatma after death.
Yes.
Okay. So Ashtanga Yoga is when you control all your senses.
Yes. You're sitting, and you got the sitting posture, and you've got so many, rules for you sort of close your eyes more or less, but you are also looking at the tip of your nose, and you're controlling your breathing, and at the same time you are chanting Om, and it's done for over a very, very long period of time.
Is it like meditation, like the sages?
That's it.
So when they reach Paramatma, is that where the Param Jyoti, did you say? Brahma Jyoti? No.
Paramatma is, again, that is Shirodakshay Vishnu, who is in this world. He has a special planet. So they attain that planet. It's like, not quite Dhruv Lok, but, what's that called? It's Shirodakshay Vishnu. He lives on that planet. There's one planet in every universe which just belongs to Krishna or Vishnu or Paramatma is there. And he expands from there into every living entity. So that's where one would attain that position. But it wouldn't be necessarily, it'll be Satchit Anand, it'll be blissful happiness. But with Padmatma, you're limited in terms of what sort of relationship you can have with Padmatma. It's a servant-disciple relationship or a neutral relationship. But you can't be friends, you can't be lover, you can't be parent of Paramatma. It's a little bit restricted in terms of the relationships one can have. Does that make sense?
Can you
Yes.
repeat, please?
Yeah. Is it? Oh, sorry. Is Shirodaksha, well, Shirodaksha Vishnu
That's right.
abode? Shirodaksha is Vishnu's abode.
That's right. It's where Brahma goes to pray whenever they want Lord Vishnu to come and help them in this world, in this universe.
Okay.
But it is part of the spiritual world because Krishna is there. So it's just the limited amount of relationships one can have in that situation.
Oh, it's in the spiritual world.
It's in this world, but because it's Krishna's planet, it's regarded as, it's like an embassy. You know, like in this country, we have the Indian embassy. So as soon as you step into the Indian embassy, you're out of UK and you're into India. So it's like
okay. Oh, right. I understand. Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for inquiring.
That's okay.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So, the fastest, most effective way to attain the Supreme Bhakti Yoga, this path of active service to God in the mood of devotion, is described as the topmost and quickest path, spiritual path. Following other processes like Ashtanga Yoga, the practitioner has to be careful in all the technicalities, like we just discussed, how the process of meditation takes place, the breathing, etc. And also the intricacies of passing away when the sun is in the north. So that's another thing the yogi has to be very careful of. The Ashtanga yogi, if the sun is in the north and he passes away, that's good news. He'll attain the spiritual world. But if it's in the south, then he's going to get a completely different result. So he's going to still be in this material world because the sun is in the wrong place. Now, with Bhakti Yoga, however, which is a very powerful process as required in this age of rampant materialism and temptation, coupled with individual weakness and lack of spiritual aspiration. We're very weak and we don't really care spiritually. So the devotee, however, is completely reliant on the Lord because of these factors. And therefore, we don't have to worry, where is the sun? Doesn't matter. We're just dependent on the Lord. Bhakti Yoga is so powerful. Doesn't matter what time you die, where the sun is when you die, whether you're even thinking of God when you die. Doesn't matter. Because Bhakti Yoga, if one is performing Bhakti Yoga, Krishna himself will come and give protection. Nothing is lacking. So the lesson from this is, devotee simply relies on the mercy of the Lord. Even if the Lord offers him all types of liberation, the devotee does not accept because he simply wants to serve the Lord. That's the point. He doesn't want anything for himself. So he just wants to please the Lord. So if for any reason he's not remembering the Lord at the end, because there's so many things that can happen in Kali Yuga, it doesn't matter. Because the Lord is completely indebted to that devotee. Because all his life he's never wanted anything apart from serving him. So at the end, Krishna, he finds it impossible to repay the debt to such a devotee. And thus, Krishna is conquered by the devotee's love because he cannot restore. So he will always protect that devotee, no matter what. The example is the gopis. Krishna said to the gopis, when they came in the middle of the night, as soon as he played the flute, they came. And he said to them, I can never repay you for your service. Be happy with your service, because I can never repay your debt. So chapter 8, spiritual inquiries are very important. Every few minutes, we should call out to Krishna. We can understand the different destinations of various spiritualists, and the pure devotee only wants to serve the Lord. Very, very interesting chapter. So let's see if we can do chapter 9. Yeah, good. So chapter 9 is the most confidential knowledge. Krishna explains that the knowledge he's about to impart is the most confidential. Raj Vidya, king of all knowledge, as it illuminates the true position and nature of the soul in relation to God. So in this world, if one believes in God, a lot of people will think, oh, we're very immature or naive. Science has replaced God. Why do you want to believe in God anymore? However, logical and rational analysis of the complexity, design, and intricate engineering of this creation makes it plain, makes it clear that there must be some conscious intelligence behind it. There has to be some conscious intelligence, because the world is functioning in such an amazing way. To categorically deny this suggests a stubborn, irrational, and illogical predisposition towards atheism. Many people don't want to believe in God because they don't want to understand that there is something higher than themselves. They want to believe in themselves only. I am the doer of everything. It's because of me the world is functioning. Thus, Krishna explains that the knowledge he is about to impart is state-specific. That means one must be non-envious and faithful to understand it. Faith is not opposed to knowledge, but is actually a prerequisite for receiving it. We have to have faith that we are going to wake up in the morning when we go to sleep. Otherwise, who would go to sleep? Have to have faith that the bank will give you your money back. Otherwise, who will put money in the bank? Faith is required at every step of our existence. So why not have the faith that God is our protector, is our well-wisher, is the benefactor of everything that we do. So, lesson number 36, establish deep faith within our heart that Krishna is a supreme and our protector, our guide, our beloved. And faith is defined in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. So Shraddha is very important. To have faith in God, very important. So, text number 4 to 10 of chapter 9. Krishna begins to impart knowledge of his inconceivable relationship with the universe and all living entities. While this knowledge gives an indication of the character, greatness, and capacity of the Lord, it also exposes our inability to comprehend such matters through mundane logic and reason. So, it's inconceivable. It's not easy to understand the Lord. Any idea is conceived within the mind. A child is conceived within the womb. In other words, a concept is contained within something. However, since the qualities and characteristics of the Lord are unlimited, they can't be contained within any boundary. Therefore, God's activities and relationships are deemed inconceivable. He says many times, I am in this universe, but I'm not in it at the same time. So he is in it as part of his energy, but he may not be in it personally. We can learn that the Lord and his potencies are inconceivable. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established a principle of achintya bede bede tattva. inconceivable oneness and difference at the same time. In text 4, for example, in this text 4, in this chapter, Krishna says, all beings are in me, but I am not in them. How do you understand that? Very difficult to understand that. In text 5, he says, although I am everywhere, I am not part of this cosmic manifestation. How do you understand that? So God is difficult to understand, very inconceivable to understand. So then text 11 to 29. Even after Krishna explains the opulences and qualities of his personal form, there are many who misunderstand him. Krishna comes in a human-like form, so some deem him to be an ordinary human. Yes, an ordinary person. Krishna also doesn't exhibit himself as God. He's humble. He doesn't show off his position. And that's why he likes devotees who are humble. He himself is humble. Others believe a personal God, personal form of God, to be an elementary and infantile concept. They think that, somebody believing in the deity of the Lord. It's very immature. Others believe that God manifests innumerable forms represented by various demigods, each of whom are worthy of worship. This is another misunderstanding, because the demigods are not God. They are servants of God. And then there's the others who cannot perceive of anything beyond this universe, and therefore consider the cosmos to be a supreme object of worship, nothing beyond this universe. So they worship the impersonal form of God. While some claim that all paths lead to the same destination. So if you worship Durga Mata, you go to Krishna or supreme spiritual world. Why? Krishna highlights that he awards different results to a person's worship based on their motivations and understanding. So if one buys a ticket to go to New York, but one wants to go to Delhi, then we are not going to get to Delhi. We're going to get to New York. So if one worships a Devata, one will go to the Devata. It's not that one will go to the same spiritual destination as those who worship the Supreme. Krishna, however, establishes the worship of his personal form as the highest. So lesson 38, we can worship the personal form of Krishna exclusively, without a second, and according to our capacity. So for example, he says, just offer me a piece of fruit, a leaf, water, and a flower. I will accept it if you offer it with love. He is not a demanding God. Very simple worship. One can see him face to face and have a personal loving relationship with him. So just worship this personal form of God with full faith. And then the final bit. The devotee, even if he commits a horrible act, is considered saintly and is quickly rectified. Krishna requests Arjuna to boldly declare that his devotees are never vanquished. So this is the point, that sometimes whilst we're in this world, we may do something crazy. But as long as we are devoted to the Lord and we realize the mistake we have made and we rectify ourselves and remain God conscious, then Krishna will pardon that devotee. Because he says, declare it boldly, Arjuna, my devotee is never vanquished. And Krishna doesn't say, my devotee is never vanquished. He says to Arjuna, you tell everybody. Because Krishna doesn't always keep his word, but he always keeps the word of his devotees. So he's telling Arjuna, you tell everybody, my devotee is never vanquished. By thinking of Krishna, offering him obeisances, becoming absorbed in him, one, regardless of his position, will go back to Godhead. This is so powerful. And the lesson is forgive and be forgiven. Everyone makes mistakes in lives. and probably over and over again. Due to our past conditioning, we are bound to make mistakes. But Krishna is very forgiving and understanding. And there are 5 types of people. The 5th class, they will only see bad in everyone. And they just criticize. Even if there's something fantastic going on, nonsense. 4th class person is person who will see good and bad in everyone, but they will only focus on the bad. So yes, somebody is doing nicely, but they'll only look at the bad. 3rd class is one who sees both good and bad in equal measure. So that person will see somebody doing good and bad, and they'll give both equal weight. 2nd class is one who sees good and bad, but they will focus only on the good. And the 1st class, he will only see good. And that is Krishna, and the Guru can do this. They will only see good in every activity. So where are we? We can judge for ourselves. But if somebody has offended us in the past, we forgive them. No problem. No problem. It doesn't mean we're weak, that we will keep letting somebody offend us. No, no. It doesn't mean we're weak. It means we're strong. We're willing to say, okay, I understand this has happened. I will not bear a grudge. But it's not that we will let it keep happening to us. That's not going to happen. We're not foolish. We're forgiving. So, what are the ones, the lessons? Have deep faith in Krishna. Understand that he's inconceivable. We may not be able to understand him. That's fine, because we have small brains. We can worship Krishna exclusively, or Ram, or Vishnu, whoever one is attached to. And we can forgive and be forgiven. Forgive ourselves, actually. We often forget to forgive ourselves when we make mistakes. So I wanted to stop there. Any questions, any comments?
Prabhuji,
Yes, Nida.
people who think good and bad, that 5 classes of the people, that's really nice. The problem is that people, if something bad has happened, people will not forget that. They will continue remunerating on the bad things that people have done. And this can just, by some people think that, okay, something has happened bad, but at the end of the day, they forget about it, they have a new beginning on the next day. So it's so many different types of the people, and at times we bring problem for ourselves.
We bring problem for ourselves. Correct. So somebody said something 10 years ago, we still remember.
Yes. Yeah. Something good is done, people forget that. Yeah. Something bad,
they never forget.
Never forget. No, people don't forget the bad things.
That's correct. But that eats us up. That's the problem. If we keep holding a grudge, it's like holding a hot piece of coal, coal is burning, and we're holding on to it, and it's actually burning us up. The other person, he's forgotten. Oh, and if you remind him, oh, did I really say that? I'm very sorry. I didn't mean it like that.
Very funny.
Yeah.
We
have to let go. If we don't let go, we just forever we'll be just angry. Like we're destroying our own. Our own samskaras are being destroyed.
Yeah.
The devotee can think, this is my karma, and I have to suffer this for whatever reason. That's fine. It's gone. Finished. But the other party shouldn't be thinking like that. Oh, it's his karma, and I'm glad I made him suffer. That's not good. Thank you, Anima. Thank you for sharing.
Finish?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, other Mataji said the same thing. I'm telling the same thing, that if you have done so many good things and everybody is happy with you, but in that time, if one mistakes happen, then they will forget all the good things you have done in the past.
Yeah.
And they will just come to the point where you have made, why did you make this mistake? You
Yes.
knew it, you knew it.
Yes.
And that's what I would like to say, that what all the good things you have done, they will forget. But one mistake happened.
Yeah.
Why you done? And then they will remember it all the time. He done this, he done this, he done this, or
But-
she done this.
But you know, Prabhupada, it's a blessing when that happens. It's a blessing because if you can then sit back and say, no problem. You can blame me for that one mistake and forget all the good. No problem. I will walk away from this. No problem.
Okay, you accept it.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
Oh,
Because
that's a
way-
blessing.
That way you have whatever you were meant to do, you did. Out of the kindness of your heart, you've done it. And you can just say, no problem. You can blame me for that one mistake. I accept the blame. And I don't take any credit for the good. That way you will have peace of mind. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hare Krishna.
Madhuben, anything like you'd like?
Yeah, just it's not a થોડુંક આનાથી બારે છે. મને વૈદિક ધર્મની જ્યારે વાત થાય, વૈદિક ધર્મ અને આપણી ગીતાની, મને એમાં હું છે ને થોડી કન્ફ્યુઝ છું કે વૈદિક ધર્મમાં પેલા તો ગીતા શીખવી પડે છે. ગીતાના રૂલ્સ તો બધા એમાં આવે જ. તો પણ મને હજી સમજ નથી પડતી કે
Very good question. The Vedas are like scripture, Shastra Boche, Vedas.
Yeah.
Upanishads છે, Puranas છે, Vedas છે, Upavedas છે, Upangas છે. There's probably, I think, 2 billion verses in total in the Vedas. But what Bhagavad Gita is doing, Krishna has done, and only he can do it. He has summarized the whole Vedas.
That's right.
In 700 verses, or he only spoke 548 verses. So he has summarized the whole of Vedas. You don't have to read anything else. Just Gita is enough.
Yeah, because તમે બીજું બધું વાંચો તો at the end તમે ગીતામાં જ પાછા આવી જાઓ છો, જે કાંઈ વાંચો.
Very good. Very good.
તો પછી મને એમ થાય કે આ બધું ગીતામાંથી લીધું છે કે આ બધામાંથી ગીતા આવી છે?
It's from, yes, from the Vedas, Gita has been summarized by Krishna.
Okay.
Very good point.
But actually વેદ જે છે ચારે વેદો પણ ભગવાનના જ કીધેલા છે ને. Nobody's.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
તો ત્યારે આપણે ખાલી એમ કહીએ કે ભગવાનના જ શબ્દો છે, ભગવાને કીધેલા છે, ઇઝ ફ્રોમ ગોડ. તો અને અહીંયા ગીતામાં આવી છે ઓનલી કે કૃષ્ણ સેઝ.
That's it. Because he summarized everything.
Okay. Thank you.
Because to read 2 billion verses, impossible at life.
I know.
Gita,
But sometimes, my nature is little bit different. Sometimes you say something, then I try to find out. And these days Google is so helpful to find. I'm not very clever in computer or anything. No phone, not much. Just but if it comes in my mind, I spend midnight up to midnight in there and I find out my question answer. That's it. That's my habit.
So there are some sources of knowledge: Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and we have now added Google to it as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it's little in this time, it's really helpful. Sometimes especially me, I think, are they saying exactly the right thing? Sometimes. So
reference is always Gita.
Yeah.
Reference is always Gita. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madhuben. Very good. Good interaction.
Thank you. Anyway, thanks.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we can stop. Okay. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So tomorrow, hopefully, we'll look at 10th chapter, 10th